Welcome back, and a very, very heartfelt welcome to the great Rod Barton. I say it great, not just because he's the chairman of our Institute for the American Future. Did I mention that it makes this program possible? I think I did. Support us at usfuture.org, please. Rod Barton, in addition to that exalted status, is also a very accomplished businessman, having cut his teeth in the private sector with the PayPal mafia back in the day, and having been also a guru to now Ambassador Mike Huckabee when he was governor of the state of Arkansas as his policy director. So a man of many parts, now serving a very important role as the proprietor of the rodmartin.org website, where you can find the Rod Martin Report. Required reading every day. You must, subscribe for that matter, please, because you have a need to know what he knows, which is a lot about a lot of things. And also he features some very impressive guests as well at the Rod Martin Report. Rod, welcome back. It's good to have you with us once again.
Great to be here.
So I started in on a riff with our friend Brent Money in the Texas state legislature about what the jihadis are up to over the next 48 hours as we're speaking. And we talked a bit about the first order of business, which is likely to be the vote that will be taken in the city of McKinney, Texas, on whether to approve yet another Sharia supremacist jihadist forward operating base doing business as an Islamic society, I think, in that fair city. So having covered that, I wanted to talk to you about two other aspects of this, what I call jihadist trifecta. This evening as well, we will probably hear the results of the Democratic primary in the state of Michigan, aimed at filling the seat of the retiring Senator Peters, I believe it is, quite possibly with a jihadist Marxist by the name of Abdul El-Sayed. We'll come to the next one in a minute, but I did want to get your thoughts, Rod. I don't know how much you know about this character, but he seems to be the sort of Mamdani like character that we're told we're going to see a lot more of. Democratic socialist-ish, if not literally a member, and very much jihadist, I think, as well. Your thoughts, sir?
Well, none of that should surprise us. Yeah, it's very much like our argument about socialism in general, which is, all of these young kids think that they've reinvented the wheel. Sorry, guys, this has been around for a couple hundred years. We've seen this play, if you count the French Revolution, longer than that. And we know how it comes out. We know what the planks of the DSA platform translate to in power. We don't have one or two outlier examples. We have a world full of examples going back a very, very long time. Well, guess what? Islam, we have way more examples for way longer. This is not unknown territory. So one of the things that just boggles my mind is, and always has, is the pure parochialism of the American left. Their certainty that everyone around the world that they happen to like likes them back. That everybody that they want you to hold in respect also respects you and them. And of course, we saw just how much they respected Barack Obama, but that's not even the point. They project onto these people what they believe about the world, and they lump all religious people together as basically the Sunday school class that they went to when they were a child and then rejected. So So they have this idealized view of religion that isn't based in anything except a half remembered version of Protestant Christianity. And they assume that Zoran Mamdani agrees with that. He just calls God a different word. That is not at all true. Every different religion has, whatever the similarities may be, they're all really different. They are really different ways of looking at the world. And Islam, in particular, certainly can be mitigated if you take it in a little bit different direction here and there. We don't have the kind of jihad problem coming out of Indonesia that we have coming out of Afghanistan. And, these are different places, different peoples, different subsets of Islam. But this isn't a different subset of Islam. Mamdani and Al Said and these guys are true Islamists. They're what you keep calling Sharia supremacists, and they have a political program. If we were talking about Battlestar Galactica, and they have a plan, they do. They absolutely do. And they're not really being quiet about it. So you put these guys in political office where they are able to legislate, where they are able to issue executive orders, where they are able to let contracts and change zoning and do all the different things they want to do. You're not going to get what you would have gotten if you'd elected a Methodist. You just aren't. You're going to get a certain road into something that increasingly looks like Britain, where the socialist government now arrests 10 times as many people for so-called speech violations as Vladimir Putin does. And it's always the people who are in opposition to the Islamic conquest of their country, but it ends up exactly where every country in the Middle East ends up, exactly where every Balkan country ended up under the Turks. It's the same story for 1400 years. And if you're dumb enough to let yourself be conquered, that's one thing. But if you're dumb enough to vote for your own conquest and subjugation, that's got to be the dumbest thing in human history. Yet Democrats never cease to go there.
You mentioned the plan. As it happens, I'm holding up a little pamphlet, I guess you'd call it, booklet, called The Explanatory Memorandum on the General Strategic Goal of the Group in North America. This is one of my favorite props, but why it's so important, Rod, as I know you know, is it is the Muslim Brotherhood's secret plan for, quote, destroying and eliminating Western civilization from within by their hands, meaning the non-believers, and the hands of the believers, so that Allah's religion is made victorious over all other religions. And as you say, they couldn't be more clear that that's what they're doing. And this was written back in 1991, by the way. They continue to do it. So you and I may have some differences on certain points of this, but I think fundamentally Sharia is what is operating throughout the Muslim world. And there may be outliers. I think actually Indonesia is less and less an outlier than it has been in the
Oh, it
past.
has problems. I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying it doesn't
Getting
look
there.
like Syria.
Not yet, but Syria, Syria didn't look like Syria not so long ago.
That's also
But under Al Qaeda, it's looking a lot like Afghanistan. But my basic point in all of this is to say, in the state of Michigan, we may well see a Senate candidate who exhibits all of the horrors that you just shared with us, and will be bringing it to the United States Senate if he gets past Mike Rogers, and will become, of course, a further vector for the takedown of our country. And Rod, I want to ask you this question because I know you, like me, took on probably multiple occasions an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. And I just want to say, one of the things that our campaign to save Texas and save America is going to be focused like a laser on is that if you are a Sharia adherent Muslim who believes that you have to be imposing Sharia in this country, it is Allah's will, you can't take that oath of office faithfully, honestly, and reliably, because it says you will support the Constitution of the United States, support and defend, or words to that effect, against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So help you God. Now, what is wrong with this picture that you're going to hear a guy like this professing that he can take it when taqiyya, lying for the faith, lying for their program, is not only, an option, it's not only actually condoned, it's obligatory
It's
if it's
required.
necessary to advance the cause, right?
And that doesn't mean that every Muslim is necessarily going to do this, but if you believe in Islam to the degree that these guys do, you absolutely believe this is morally required. So, you may have a Muslim friend down the street who isn't quite there. Just like I have Christian friends who aren't really very Christian, but these guys are the real deal. And they're very clear about it. So there's no question their religious beliefs tell them not only that they can take that oath while deliberately lying, but that they must.
Yeah, hand on the Quran, which says exactly that.
Yeah.
We have to take just a short break. We'll be right back with the great Rod Martin on the other side of it. I hope you'll stay tuned. We're back. So is Rod Martin, praise the Lord, the author of the Rod Martin Report. Very impressive regular service to our country. I'm going to give you a sneak preview. He's also writing a book. We'll come to that in due course, but very, very important content being advanced by a man I call our time's happiest warrior. He's darn optimistic about most things, and that livens these kinds of conversations because generally we're not. But Rod, I did want to ask you about another piece of this trifecta. You've got the McKinney Mosque, a mega mosque, a jihadist mosque that Steve Bannon just regaled his audience with me, is basically being enabled by a lot of rich Texan businessmen who aren't Muslim, who just are interested in making money. We talked a little bit about just now this idea that a guy who wants to bring about Sharia instead of the Constitution is actually just the guy to put in the United States Senate because he'll swear an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. Not. So let me turn to Massachusetts. As I'm fond of pointing out, Massachusetts was in the very vanguard 250 years ago in bringing about this country. The Adams guys, the Hancocks, the Paul Reveres. Well, they've got a vanguard working now, but in the Senate of that state, there are a couple of legislators who are determined to see if they can get passed by the rest of their legislature a bill. It's S2134, I think is its number, and I don't remember exactly what they call it, but it is a submit to Sharia bill. To wit, not only is it just uber sensitive to the priorities of Muslims, they're going to actually give preference in state employment positions to Muslims, and they're going to work really, really, really hard to come up with ways to ban Islamophobia. What's wrong with this picture, sir?
Well, I was born in 1969. I grew up on a steady diet of liberals telling us that there was no greater threat to liberty whatsoever than the mixing of religion and government. And now that's all they do. And it's just remarkable. They do it with a straight face. They don't say, "Hey, we were wrong." That's not how they feel about it. They feel like the greatest threat to American liberty is a Baptist Sunday school lady at a fellowship supper. But these jihadists are great. And there's a reason that they feel that way. They feel that way because they hate America. The jihadists do, the Marxists do. That may sound extreme. Read Howard Zinn. The entire point of Zinn's so-called history is that America is hopelessly, irredeemably evil and must be burned down and started over. That's the entire point of the 1619 Project. That's what the left has been teaching in graduate schools since I was a little kid. This hasn't really changed. And what the left has always done in every country we can name, and one that just leaps to mind, of course, is Nicaragua, when they created a popular front, as they always call it, to overthrow the dictator Anastasio Somoza. Okay, well, they achieved that. And the communists were just a very small part of the popular front, but they were the most ruthless part. They knew why they were there. And within 18 months, all of the other parties involved in the Popular Front were gone. You saw the same thing in Czechoslovakia in 1948. We're going to have a government of national unity. Okay. We're communists. We're on board with that. We believe in democracy. Okay. Well, what do you want to be part of the coalition? Oh, nothing much. We just want the defense ministry and the interior ministry. So, of course, almost immediately they've taken over the country and turned it into a communist dictatorship. This is how they function.
Another dictatorship, just their dictatorship.
Yeah, well, I mean, Czechoslovakia was a decent place until that. They had a moment of freedom after the war. But, even if there were Soviet troops present. So this was a shock, I think, to Truman. This really surprised the not yet Beltway and crystallized support, I think, in a big way for the anti-communist forces in Greece and Turkey. But we haven't learned the lesson. This is what they do. They make common cause with anybody who hates the target, which in this case is the entire American constitutional system. And then afterward, they figure we're going to kill them all. It doesn't really matter. And of course, the Islamists are exactly the same. So if they ever beat us, if they ever turned America into this nightmare that they want to create, the very next thing that would happen is all these people would start killing each other. And we have seen this play so many times over the last century and a half. I don't know how anybody missed it, except, oh, wait, we don't teach history anymore. And the history we do teach was written by Howard Zinn. So it's just nightmarish. We can sit here and watch it coming from 20 miles off. And the only thing we can really do to stop it is understand it to be the political program it is, no matter how it masks itself, and defeat it through persuading the American people this is horribly wrong. You don't want to become Canada, you don't want to become Great Britain, and you darn sure don't want to become Qatar. And that's where you're headed.
Yeah, big time. And made possible, in fact, by the Qataris.
Of course.
A lot of this through their financing. This is such an important point, Robin. I so appreciate you, not only tying this all together. I would just add into the mix that, by the way, there's another totalitarian vector, and that is the globalist, who
absolutely
may not be quite as violent, but they have equally in mind their world government is going to be what results from all of this. And they will, as you say, fight it out after we're gone. But they're making common cause to get us gone because we're in the way. We'll be right back with much more with Rod Martin about Iran, among other things. Stay tuned for that, please. We're back, and we have got one more segment with my dear friend and chairman, in the best sense of the word, Rod Martin. And we're going to talk now about, well, some of the same forces that are operating in a place called Iran. In fact, interesting, as you were talking, Rod, about those sorting out that take place between the communists and the jihadis. Iran was one of those places. There was a popular front that got rid of the Shah back in 1979, as I recall. And the communists and the jihadis under the Ayatollah were going to govern alongside Democrats and all of that. And in the short order, everybody was killed except, the Ayatollah's loyalists. And the rest, as they say, is history. Specifically, a history of trying to bring death, yes, to Israel, but also death to America. And what I wanted you to lay out for our audience, because I read opus by you on the subject, is how what's going on with respect to Iran at the moment is in accordance with the interests of the United States, if not exactly according to plan in every respect, nonetheless coming up pretty well, if not roses. Give us that laydown.
Well, no plan survives contact with the enemy. So we knew that it would have, ups and downs. But the truth is, circling back to something you said a minute ago, and we were talking about Czechoslovakia in 48 and Greece and Turkey in the several years following that. And of course, we could have added in Korea and the rest of Eastern Europe and so forth. It's worth remembering that we've been dealing with that popular front situation in Iran all the way back to the beginning of the Cold War. We are constantly treated to this bunk about how the CIA overthrew a popularly elected government in Iran in 1953. No, they took out an attempted communist takeover. Mossadegh was a communist. He was a Soviet puppet. And yeah, we took him out. You bet we did, and I'm proud of it, because had we not, it would have put a hole in the entire containment strategy that we had just had articulated, of course, in the long telegram, at the exact moment that the Soviets had just detonated their first hydrogen bomb. This is just not okay. So we bought ourselves several decades there. And then the Popular Front came back, and Jimmy Carter loved it. So he encouraged it, and we get the Ayatollahs for 47 years. Now, what's happening now? Trump has a lot of aims here, but they all boil down to one simple point. There is not a single armed conflict you can point to in the Middle East of any consequence that isn't armed, funded, and directed from Tehran. It's just how it works. And it's the same kind of alliance approach that we're seeing here with the DSA and the Islamists. These Shias do not like the Sunnis at all, but they're very willing to use them. They were very willing to use Assad. They were very willing to use Hezbollah. They were very willing to use Hamas. And they will continue to do anything that gives us a black eye. So, yeah, Trump wants them gone. You have to get to a point where the regime can be overthrown from within. He's made very clear from the first, we're not going to put boots on the ground. We're not going to invade, but we can facilitate an uprising that may or may not come, because if we aren't on the ground, you can't guarantee that it will. But what you can do is you can defang them. You can build around them. So you've got this massive increase in pipeline construction from the UAE to Fujairah in Oman, across Saudi Arabia to Yanbu, across Syria now. And we just let contracts to 2 American majors to make that all happen. We should be able, in something between 18 and 36 months, we ought to be able to route as much as 75% of the oil that would normally pass through the Strait of Hormuz completely around Hormuz with hardened infrastructure that's going to be really hard to kill. So these are all positive things. Now, what happened this weekend? Trump's prepared this huge strike. Well, I don't know. I mean, that was part of the point of my piece. Trump is spending more time when he's saying he's negotiating with the Iranians. He's honestly spending more time negotiating with the Arabs, because you need to get them on side to do what really needs to happen. And they're all squeamish, which is dumb, but normal. But what we're hearing, I've been hearing a couple of interesting reports out of the Middle East just in the last 12 hours that suggest that, in fact, the operational plan was leaked at an incredibly dangerous moment. And that's the real reason we called off the strikes, because the Iranians were going to be ready for it. And that suggests we have a serious problem at the highest levels of the United States government. I can imagine where it might be coming from, but it doesn't matter. I mean, that's something for Kash Patel to get all over.
Well, that does leave us hanging. Are you willing to vector any, identification as to who you think would have leaked?
It would be purely speculative, so it wouldn't be fair. But I think it's reasonably obvious to see who in the administration is against this war, and I think they are probably acting, unless they actually leaked. I think, they're probably mostly acting in good faith. You can have a difference of opinion on these things. I just think they're wrong, partly because once the president's committed to a course of action, everybody needs to be on board. But second, because there was no way that we were ever going to be able to do this again if Trump didn't act when he did. The Iranian negotiators came to Oman telling us in February, bragging that they had enough nuclear material to build 11 nuclear weapons. We saw them building to their 20,000 ballistic missile goal. We saw them launch 2 IRBMs against Diego Garcia that could have just as easily hit Paris. And they're about a half step at that point from an ICBM that can hit Kansas City.
We have to leave it at that, Rob. This is a topic to which we will return, of course, very soon. God bless you, my friend. Keep up the good work at Rod Martin Reports. Also, I hope the rest of you will join us again for more next time. Until then, go forth and multiply.